Absolutely, absolutely. I never stopped being a teacher, whether it was with my son, that kind of got on his nerves, or when I'm in a basement of a church, having conversations with people because I've written a controversial piece in the Huffington Post, or if I'm in Ferguson, interviewing activists, right, or engaging in conversation with activists, right? Curating the possibility for the expansion of one's horizon. That's what we do, right? And you don't fill that with your thoughts. And I learned this from Cornell. You create the conditions under which people will cultivate the habits of reading and asking and seeking that will expand their horizons. And this is what the Germans call Bildung, right? This is education at its best, because it's character formation. So wherever we are, if we take this vocation seriously, this enterprise seriously, we bring that skill set to bear, right? We bring that skill set to bear. There's nothing worse than a teacher that's turning over old crusted papers, the same lecture every year. When we're doing our scholarship, we're growing. We're staying up on the latest innovations and deepening our own encounters with the material that's important to us. So the scholarship is actually central to the teaching. It's a false opposition, and this is why I'm a liberal arts professor at heart, right? It's not that you just teach and don't do your work. You have to do both, because the work feeds into the teaching. If you're working through an idea and you're excited about it in the privacy of your own study and the solitude of your own reading, that's going to translate in the passion that you bring to the subject matter that you're teaching. So I'm always thinking, how will this translate, right? How will I translate the way in which I'm thinking about the imagination in the context of Black politics to how I teach Black power, right? So, that's just one example, so they're hand in hand. Well, the seminar format is really good for that. When it goes well is that, you got the group around. I had this with my recent class on prophecy and social criticism in the United States, which is a staged debate, curated debate between Michael Walzer's conception of the social critic and Edward Said's conception of the representative intellectual. And the stakes of that contrast are serious, because it moves out of the abstract into the real world as we talk about the Israeli-Palestinian situation. And you have the seminar, and you want your introductory remarks to the class before the presentations happen, and you want to give your little. They wouldn't let me finish. They kept cutting me off. So finally, by the middle of the semester, I just didn't do it anymore, because they were so engaged, and we were doing the work together. So it became this experience of where we were just reading together and dialoguing together. At that point, the syllabus, which is an argument, which is the actual tool of curation, had done its work. And then I had these brilliant young folk just going at it, which was just, and you can see the material moving in them as they were grappling with the implications of their commitment to one side or the other, as they reached for nuance and complexity and gray area. It was real fun, really fun. Have the language to account for what you see and what you feel and what you experience, then you're always gonna, the growth is truncated, it's contained. The example I always use, when I moved to Maine, I didn't have a language for a moose because I'd never seen one. And we drove by it, and I said, that is a big deer, right? Right? Until someone said, no, that's a moose, and if you don't hit a moose, because it'll fall on the car, and all this stuff followed about how I then drove, as opposed to, what would happen with an encounter with a deer, right? And so if we don't have the language to really, and this is why reading deeply and expansively is so important, because every time we encounter a text, every time we encounter, whether it's a philosophical argument or whether it's an extraordinary novel, right? The vast archive, the archive, our treasure chest of languages, of words to describe our experiences expands. And then once we can put word to it, it's not that we're trying to capture it, but then we're able to do something. We're able to move into that next phase, if that makes sense. But you intuit when you just had a bad lecture. You just know it. I bombed on that one. I think in my own experience, right, is when I know that when I've allowed my own commitments and passions to overwhelm the curatorial practice, right? So when I'm too invested in the arguments, I'm always invested, but I'm invested in such a way that I don't give the student the space to kind of claim her position for herself. That's when you fail, right? That's when you fail. So they can be up in there reading Baldwin just wrong. And you just, how do you want to get in there? But you gotta wait. You gotta point them to the passage. You can't tell them how to read it. You can't say, look, that's what the passage is doing. You gotta be patient. And when I'm not patient, when I haven't been patient over the 20 years I've been teaching, wow, 20 years, that's when I fail. Oh my God, yeah, especially ours. Especially ours. See, the teacher always presupposes student. The teacher is like water on the mustard seed, right? And it's all about growth, right? Self-examination. And we live in these times where people feel like they're settled in their ideas, and they know what the truth is, and they're clear about wrong and right and wrong and evil and good. There's no nuance. The complexity of the world has been flattened out into melodrama, right? Where the other idioms of tragedy and comedy and irony, right, seem to have been tossed to the side as these kind of melodramatic moralists do what they do. And the teacher has at her core that Socratic impulse, right? I'm going to create the conditions for you to see yourself in a different way, in a different light. I'm going to create the conditions for your horizons to expand, not narrow, right? And so when we're in that mode of asking questions, when we're in that mode of interrogation, when we're in that mode of seeking and reaching for our better selves, you are in the teaching mode. You are in the student mode. You are in the growing mode at that point. And Lord, in these dark times, if we don't need that, you know what I mean? If we don't need that, I mean, we need that more than anything, man, if that makes sense.